The aim of this video is to show a demo search for an outsourcer trying to select a CDMO through our CDMO sector. The first page that we can see here is our login page. So by clicking on sign in, it should take us through to an outsourcer's account area. So within the account area, we can see any submissions that we've sent through during previous searches. But at this point, we're going to really focus on jumping into a search straight away. So we're going to click on the central search services button here in the center of the screen. Once we enter the search services screen, we can see the 6 sectors for the platform and select which one is appropriate. For this example, we're going to work through a CDMO sector. So I'm going to select the CDMO tile and then click continue in the bottom right-hand corner. The first section of our platform focuses on the questions that a service provider needs in order to understand and assess your project and whether it fits their service provision and whether they're interested in taking the work further. So the next set of questions is really setting background details. It's all non-confidential, but is really essential to help a service provider assess whether the project fits for them. So for this project, I'm going to assume that it's a small molecule, non-biological, that we're looking for a capsule drug product in order to take into a phase 1 study, and we're looking for support for development and clinical trial manufacture. So selecting the small molecule button, what type of molecule that we're working with. Ultimately, let's assume that our project is going to be a prescription project. So we'll select the prescription button. And then the question is the route of administration. Well, we're going to take forward an oral product being a capsule. So we'll select that and click continue. The next question then is about therapeutic indication. And there's a range here of about the top 15 current therapeutic indications under investigation. And let's just select metabolic, as that's generally the sort of flavor of the month at the moment. In terms of project type, again, useful for the service provider to understand exactly the type of project that's being worked on. And the options we've got here are generic, repurposing, new molecular entity, or off-label special type products. So let's assume that this is a new molecular entity, first time that it's going to go into man. For the phase of development that we're working at, we're aiming to take this product into a phase 1. So we're going to select phase 1, but obviously we cover the phases from preclinical through to commercial. Importantly then, for a service provider to understand when you need the support, and the options that we've got here range from 2 weeks to over 12 months. Well, let's say we're going to need some support within the next 3 months in order to kick the project off. So I'm going to select the 3-month button there. The next question is really important, and from a service provider perspective, it's essential that they have as much information as possible around the handling capabilities for the API that you're working with. So we've got a range of considerations here, including potency, elements around control that are required around stability. And what I'm going to assume is that this is a relatively low potent material, but let's assume that we've got some oxygen sensitivity and light sensitivity issues that we need to be mindful about. So once they're selected, we can click on the continue button. And then the next question is, are there any specific license details or certification that we need the service provider to have? And if we're looking for drug product for a phase 1 supply, then we're obviously going to need GMP certs and an MIA license. In terms of quality standards, let's assume that we need GMP. And if at any point we're not really clear on whether the question is applicable to our needs, we can always just put not applicable or other and skip through as needed. So very quickly, we've been able to put together a good background of the project. We've been able to set the scene, exactly what it is that we're looking for at a very high level. And this really helps the service provider to understand exactly what it is that we're looking for. If we're happy with everything that we've put in there, then we can just click continue. And this moves us into the next layer of of the platform. And this is really where we start to look into the real technical detail. And this is where we can really start to differentiate between service providers, subject to the detail that you want to go to. The service provision split across our CDMO sector is split across clinical, drug substance activities, drug products, and manufacturing activities. So for this example, we're going to just select drug product development and phase 1 GMP manufacture. If we click on the select services section underneath drug product development, then it brings us down to our next level of detail. Let's assume that we're going to need some analytical development and characterisation. And this drop-down list then gives us really all the options that we're probably going to consider for a small molecule for a phase 1 development project. So we're obviously going to need assay and related substances, CV for our equipment. We'll need drug product specific development, in vitro dissolution for our capsule, and then possibly we'll need micro, but also moisture content as well. Let's assume that we're going to validate all of those methods. I'm not going to go into the next level of detail down just for the purposes of this demo, but we can do that, and we'll be down at individual assay level detail. I'm going to assume as well that we've already done our pre-formulation studies and that we're going to jump straight into drug product formulation development. And the details that we have under here are those considerations that you'd want to make when embarking on a drug product of this ilk. So based on my pre-formulation data, I'm going to assume that we're going to need some bioavailability enhancement. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to assume that based on the data I've got, that we might move with an amorphous solid dispersion approach or a lipid system. But there are a number of options that could be considered here, subject to your needs, subject to the information you have. But it should be that you can get down to a real level of technical detail, and that's going to help you when we come to search in order to be able to differentiate between the various service providers. I'm also going to assume now that we'll need some specific formulation development support according to our product type, and that we're going to do some process scale-up studies. So obviously for a capsule product, we're working on a non-sterile dosage form, and we're going to select oral solid dose when I select the button correctly. So we're going to select capsules, and we're able to come down to quite a level of detail here. So I'm going to select powder fill capsules and also semi-solid fill capsules based on the fact that we may go with either an amorphous solid dispersion or a lipid delivery system. For our GMP manufacturing detail, I'm going to select batch manufacture, and obviously it's a non-sterile development, and there's a little bit of repetition here, but hopefully this is allowing us to make sure that we're able to really tease out those service providers that can provide both development and GMP manufacturing capability. We're also going to need some ICH stability testing, and I'm going to assume that we'll need QA review, QC release, and QP release. I'm not going to go into any further detail as yet because I think you can understand it's a very simple to use system. The drop-downs provide all the options that you may want to consider, and it's easy for you to select according to your needs. Once we've done that, then we just click on continue on the right-hand side, and that gives us the summary of exactly what we've selected. If we're happy with those details, we can move on. If we need to change anything and update, then we can just go back into the platform using the change buttons that are here. So if we click on continue, because we've selected capsules, there's some additional data that we can collect as well. And this is really looking at making sure that we've selected our processes and that's clear then as we go through the relevance for selection of service provider. So based on amorphous dosage forms or lipid fill, I'm going to select spray drying and potentially powder blending here. I'm going to presume for a phase 1 that we're going to fill bottles. and that at this stage we don't need any secondary packaging materials. And we're going to apply all those details to the other sections that we'd selected related to semi-solid and powder fill. So once selected, I'm clicking continue. I'm happy with those selections, and I'm now going to name our search. So we're going to call this UT1. And what this has done now has brought up the service providers in the system that match the prerequisites that we've put in there as part of our search process. So you can see that there's a huge list of companies here, but these have all been selected now by relevance. So how do we tell the difference between the service providers? We need to just jump into some of the detail now that we can see in each of these profile sections. So if I click on the Show More Details button there, I can see that for all the service requirements that we put in place, all of these were matched, and the service provider provides all these details. So in order to progress with these, we would be in a good position to move forward. How do we differentiate then between the service providers if we've got lots that are coming up with the same relevance and the same number of service matches? Then we can look at the site profile details. So what we can see here is an overview of the company, their elevator pitch, exactly where they fit within this sector. And then we've also added a number of questions that they've answered about how they work in partnership with their clients, how they build relationships. And for me, this is really important to understand when you're selecting a service provider, because this is really key to how a development project is likely to progress based on the partnerships and the relationships that you build. So by clicking on the question, you can see the details that have been given underneath. And finally, at the bottom here, we can also see some testimonials that have been provided so that you're able to see that the companies can actually deliver on what they've said they can. So I'm going to select this provider here for RFP. So I'm going to click Select RFP. And you can see here that the Select RFP button has gone green. And based on the fact that these other providers are also matching with a similar number of service providers, I'm going to select them as well. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to limit this to 3. Our search provision allows you to select up to 5 service providers at this search point. And the reason we limit this is so that the service providers understand that the inquiry coming through is relevant and is of interest to them, that we're not just selecting service providers and sending out inquiries on a scattergun approach. A couple of things to notice on the screen. Firstly is the relevance button, and we can also, by checking the drop down, we can select for geography if needed as well, if you're looking for a specific geographical area in order to perform your work. By filtering according to geography, it will also remain by relevance. So those companies that are most relevant to your search will still remain at the top of the list. So now we've selected those 3 in order to send our inquiry through. We simply just select the Create RFP button in the bottom right-hand corner. By doing that now, the system is generating our inquiry, and this is the detail that we see on the screen here. So we'll just give that a title. We can add some details in here. So we can add an introduction. The inquiry details everything that we've put into the front end and the technical sections within the platform. So all our project requirement details are here. Our service requirements are detailed within the drop-down menu, and the additional technical requirements that we put in on the additional prompts that came up are detailed here as well. We can add any additional comments in this section, such as physicochemical characteristics of our API, any other information that you've got available that might be relevant to move into the inquiry and to send across to the service provider. And then finally, we can add in a CDA or an NDA so that as the inquiry goes through, everything is in place to allow you to make a rapid engagement then with the service provider and leading into a structured, relevant conversation very quickly in order hopefully to progress to contract. On this side, we can see the recipients that we've sent the inquiry to. And when we're happy, we simply just click Send RFP in the right-hand corner. We'll then receive a prompt to say that the RFP has been sent, and we can go back into our home screen. So this takes me back in now to my account as an outsourcer. And you can see here, this is the inquiry that I've just sent through. So I'm going to click on View More. What we can see on the right-hand side is exactly what we've just seen that's been sent through to the service provider. So all the detail is there. I can download that and save that as a PDF if I need to. And then importantly, all in one place, I can see the companies that we've sent the inquiry to. I can see whether they've viewed that, whether they're interested, and what their response time is. So all in one place, I'm tracking the inquiry. Outside of the platform now, the service providers will have just received an email. They'll have a notification that your inquiry's just come through. They can then download and review the details that you've supplied. And straight away, in their side of the system and their account, if they're interested, they'll click yes, and their details will be exchanged here. And likewise, you'll receive an email that once they've sent the notification through, and that way you have their email address and phone number, and you can contact directly, make the engagement, and move forward then to discuss your project. Hopefully, that's an overview of using the sector to search for a CDMO. The same principles apply to each of our sectors. And hopefully you can see the benefits of Pharma Services Hub to allow you to search very quickly down to a high level of technical detail and be able to coordinate and manage all of your inquiries and an output all in one central place. So that was a demo of our CDMO sector. Click the link below the video in order to search now, and let Pharma Services Hub take the frustration out of your outsourcing activities.